Our next topic, are you optimistic about the direction America is heading? According to a new survey done by CNN and Orc International, the mood of the country might be on an upswing. According to the poll, 43% of people asked say America is headed in the right direction. That's up 3% since February and a whopping 19% since August of last year. While those numbers are encouraging, it still means more than half of the country isn't happy. Are you? Do you think America is on the right track? And if not, what needs to be done to get us back in the right direction? Martin, I'm going to throw it on your shoulders, my friend. What do you think?
You know,
you're looking at your fingers. I see the wheels turning. What do you think?
You know, I've always wanted to be back in the days of the gunfighter because I'd never have to answer these kind of questions. You know, there are several people I think have gotten used to some of the problems. I was in London in 2008 in November when the bank failed and all that there. And I said, well, this could never happen in America. And then I returned home, and within a few days, we had the banking crisis. I think people are basically getting used to having a little less and needing a little less. It's quite different what you have, what you want and what you need. And I think that 50 years ago, people weren't, you know, when we look back on films like Grapes of Wrath and all that, you look back in the 30s and even after the 29 crash, it carried on for 10 years. And people were without. And then after the war, people had things in the 50s and 60s. And the bottom line is, I think it's a wonderful lesson to learn how to do without in moderation.
I have to ask you, though, has the film industry felt it like, I like to call it the man on the street? The man on the street has really felt this. Has the film industry felt the pain for many of our viewers during this economic downturn?
I've noticed a great deal of film posters on Sunset Boulevard or whatever changing drastically, repeatedly, keeping constant advertisement at a level where it allows me to believe that the films aren't doing as well as they used to. So we're getting a huge turnover of films. Every 2 weeks something's going, where a film would stay in the theater for 5 weeks if it was successful. We're having fewer films be successful in making bigger dollars, and yet we're making fewer movies because we're spending a great deal of money on half a dozen pictures.
Interesting.
Lone Ranger right now shooting in Albuquerque, and it's a $250 million budget. You know, and yet you had movies like John Carter, which was a $250 million budget, didn't do well. I would imagine Johnny Depp, you know, like in Pirates, we'll have a blockbuster there, and I hope so, because we need a good Western to make some good money, which is why I'm here.
Which is why you're here, and we are going to talk about that because that's kind of your passion, the Westerns. Let's see what some of our viewers are saying about this. I think Sandra's first, and Sandra writes in, their polls are so wrong. Maggie Shaw says, I do think things are improving. They would have been even more improved if Congress had it not been log-jammed with obstructionist members determined to sabotage Obama at the expense of the citizenry. Scott Jenkins sounding off, saying economists need to get real with Americans. There are no real jobs between shipping jobs overseas. Automation of America's factories drastically improved company logistics, internet technology, and world globalization. Companies have learned to lean out during these hard times. Wow, some great comments there. Speaking of the web and online